saying. I don't know why. I appreciate you handling that, Emily. And Michael would say, so you appreciate me handling that. And, like just the moment of appreciation, first of all, gets people into their prefrontal cortex instead of into that brainstem response of like, oh no, we're going to end up fighting. This is just going to be an example of what we do at home. We're just going to do it in front of someone else. And Tammy's going to be the coach. And, I don't necessarily need to see the reactivity right away because it's going to show up. But before they just dump the narrative, during these 3 phases, the first phase, whether it's in the session or whether it's through the whole 12 sessions you have or whatever, the first phase is really the narrative. That's the first thing. They tell you the story. So I try to get people to be able to get into that grown-up brain so they can listen to each other first without coming in reactive right away.
And do you see at the beginning when the couples come in with their narrative, do you see times when you think repair is not possible? Besides for like real anger in the room, are there other things you see that give you either hope or pessimism about the future of the couple early on? Are the things you pick up?
Even couples where there's a sort of entitlement, like if someone was cheating and they were like, well, of course I cheated because you didn't blah, 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 blah. I would call that like sort of a pleasure avoidant response, using sex or sexuality to control the relationship. Sometimes people feel like that's the only control they have. So I'm really curious, like why you thought you could manipulate your partner by saying, if you don't do this, I will have an affair or I'll cheat with someone. Or I'm really interested in that desperate response. I'm interested in the coercion and I'm interested in the manipulation. Now, if somebody is, doing it to be cruel on purpose and manipulative, I'm also interested in the person who's being manipulated. What is the benefit that they've been getting, even though they feel like their partner's been cruel and manipulated? So it doesn't matter if I have judgment about it, like I would never stay with that person if they did that to me. If the other person's like, yeah, but they're the mother of my kids, they make all the money, I have a wonderful lifestyle, we're really good friends, like there's a whole loaf of bread there that I'm not seeing. I'm just seeing a little slice. So I try not to make any judgments in the beginning. I will not tolerate any physical abuse. And I won't see people who purposely have unprotected sex with outside partners and put their partner at risk, and sort of rub it in their face, like, again, that's a form of physical abuse, and it also can be life-threatening. So, but I very rarely, I've been doing this for so long, and I very rarely see a couple where I thought, I think you should break up right away. However, that being said, I do think some affairs are what I call can openers. They're a way for people to break up when they feel like they either don't have a voice or they want to take on the role of the bad guy. And when I say guy, it could be a guy or a woman, whatever. They want to sometimes give their partner the break so that, I'll be the bad guy, so all your friends and family can blame it on me. Or it could be a passive aggressive way of saying, I really want out, but I can't find my voice. I don't know how to do it. So I need you to break up this relationship. I need you to break up our marriage. I can't do it, but I'll give you the excuse on a platter. Or sometimes it's, I didn't even know I wanted our relationship to end till I met this other person. So it's kind of like a swinging from branch to branch thing. Now that I know that somebody else will be there and want me, now I'm sure I want to break up. So I feel like affairs are either wake up or break up. It can be a can opener. And I will say very, very soon in the therapy, is this a can opener affair? Like, did you do this to get out? And I will also say affairs can be a wake-up call. Like, it can be like, whoa, 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 where were we going? What were we doing? And now everything has to come out. Now we have to be transparent. Now everything has to be a talk-aboutable thing. Because, to be honest, and with all due respect to everyone who's in the office with me, you can't go back. This is the number one thing that people want. I just want to go back to the way it was before the affair. And it's probably the hardest thing that I have to tell people, like, there is no going back. You cannot go back. That doesn't mean you can't go forward and have a new relationship with your partner, a new marriage, a new monogamy. But it can't be the way it was. And it has to be something that you both agree to in a whole different way. And so the therapy is kind of a reboot. It's like marriage 2.0 or 3.0 or 4.0, whatever. And so therapy is really about teaching people how to recognize what were they trying to wake up and why. And then later on, like, what do they want to wake up to? How do they want that to work?
I'll ask another question, but also invite everyone who's watching to put the questions in the chat line or come on the screen and talk to Tammy directly. So my last question then would be, what role does sexuality or physical intimacy play in the process of repair with some couples, all couples, most couples? Where does that fit in, and how does that fit in?
Well, statistically, not everyone cheats because of sex. In one of my books, When You're the One Who Cheats, I did some research with Ashley Madison. Ashley Madison is the website for people that look for they're married and they look for partners to have an affair with, or they look for relationships. And they have 80 million members worldwide, by the way. So there's a lot of people doing this. They gave me the capacities to do some research with their members. So I created a profile as a man, and I created a profile as a woman without a picture. And I just said, as a man, I was looking for women. As a woman, I was looking for men. I actually created one as a lesbian, but I didn't get hardly any responses. That's not a good site if you're gay to go on. But fascinatingly, when I was a woman, I got emails from men, lots of them, saying they weren't going to leave their wives, but they were not interested in just having sex. They wanted a girlfriend. They wanted someone to text every day. They wanted to know that I wasn't seeing other people. They wanted to know that they could talk to me. They wanted to tell me all their problems. They wanted to really get to know me. And it was not about sex at all. It was really about an emotional connection. And I got a lot of responses. They were all that way. And when I was a man, the emails I got from women all had pictures of their boobs, all had lingerie, bikini shots, and they were all like, I want to have sex after I put the kids on the bus. I do not want to hear about your marriage. You have a wife for all your problems. I don't want to hear about your job. I don't care about your issues. Don't tell me. I want hot sex, and I want it to be like 50 Shades of Grey sex, and then I never want to see you again. And I was like, well, that flipped the script that we normally think of, that men cheat for sex and women cheat for relationships. Now, given that it was probably a limited age range, because I think I said I was in my late 40s. So these are people that had young kids. Probably men were feeling emotionally like their wives weren't interested in them. Women were feeling like they were done carrying the emotional labor and they wanted sex. And that statistically proves out in the studies that say that women lose interest in sex with their partners much sooner. They lose interest in marriage much sooner than men do. probably because of the emotional labor and the parenting labor and the frustration that happens. So the way that I'm going to sort of blow my secret intervention here, but the way that I do it with people is, and I really believe this to be true after writing 6 books and seeing thousands of people and doing retreats and workshops. It's not so much that you look for another person if you're married or in a committed partnership and you want to cheat. It's not so much that you look for another person, it's that you look to be another person. So you're not looking for another person, you're looking to be another person. So that's really the work, is like, who did you become when you were in this affair? Who did you become when you were with this other person? And then the healing is, how do you bring that part of you in integrity into your life? Are you blaming your partner? Oh, like she would never be into that, or he doesn't like that kind of sex, or they don't appreciate me, or like, are you blaming it on your current life that you can't integrate that part of yourself? Or is it hot for you to compartmentalize that with someone else? Like, there's a lot of work to be done. So the goal is integration. Does that make sense?
Wow. No, it makes a lot of sense. And it kind of goes from the idea of how do you get over the affair to relational healing, individual healing, really taking the lens much, much wider than we're going to focus in on this one little issue or big issue. Okay, we have a little bit of time left, and I don't want to stop the audience from asking questions. Emily.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, they can raise their
Oh,
virtual hand,
another
or
way
they
we
could
can do it.
type it in the chat if they'd like.
Don't be scared. I can tell you that the issues that come up are basically forgiveness. This is what therapists ask about. Forgiveness,
Okay.
trust, and homework. Like, those are the sex. Those are the basic categories.
Would you say your approach is different from other ways of treating betrayal trauma?
I think it's very different, and I think it can be radical for some people, because my goal is not forgiveness. Forgiveness is not in the DSM. It's not a psychological goal. Forgiveness will happen organically when there's empathy. So forgiveness implies, I see the question about narcissism. Forgiveness implies that there's sort of a hoop to jump through. Like, if I'm the cheater and I say, I'm sorry, which, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be apologetic. I'm supposed to feel bad. I'm supposed to feel remorse. And then I'm supposed to apologize in a way that works for you. Now, I do all that. Now you owe me forgiveness, right? If you give me forgiveness, then we'll be past it. Why aren't you forgiving me? Like, I did all I should. I jumped through all the hoops. I'm not sure why you're still talking about this, because I said I was sorry. And so it's your problem that you don't forgive me now. So, but if I have all the power, I had the affair, I said I was sorry. Now what do you have? On the days that you feel like you have nothing, you're going to say, well, I'm going to take my forgiveness back. Today I don't forgive you, because that's all I have. So forgiveness becomes about power. It's not really about healing. Now, that's not to say, for all you forgiveness people out there, that won't happen, that you shouldn't change your whole conceptual spiritual ideas about forgiveness. But forgiveness is organic. Forgiveness happens when you get to the phase of empathy, where people understand empathetically how their behaviors have affected each other. Like, I don't really agree with you. But I get how you got to this place. I wouldn't have done it, but knowing you the way I know you, makes sense that this happened. Not you did this to me, but this happened to us.
And I see we have a hand up from Brandon. Did you want to unmute? Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. So you did mention one thing in your talk that I think the exact words you said were, "I don't tolerate physical abuse," which is of course understandable. But I'm curious on how you would handle in session if the narrative came up and that was a factor that they were experiencing in the relationship. How would you go about navigating that as a therapist with the couple?
I'd probably send them to you, Brandon, because you sound like you're more tolerant or like you have the answer to that.
I'm it's more just that I'm very new to the industry, so I'm kind of curious because I've heard from supervisors and mentors and all like this exact same
Mhm.
thing. They don't tolerate physical abuse, but you don't always get that right away. Sometimes that comes out later. So what exactly should I do as a therapist then if now suddenly the narrative is, oh, there's physical abuse elements?
Well, it's such a good question. I think it probably deserves its own training, like for many days, because again, there's like a spectrum here, a continuum of domestic violence, and physical abuse can come in many ways. Like, is it physically abusive to withhold someone's finances and to control every dime that they spend? Is it physically abusive to bar the door so someone can't get through until they answer questions? Is it physically abusive to hold their child so that they can't touch their child? Like, there's a lot of very manipulative ways of being
Hmm.
physically abusive. So if I know that there's been a history of domestic violence, I don't take them because I don't feel prepared. But I do have people in my referral base that's their specialty. When I started my career in the 80s, I used to work, my first jobs were in a women's crisis center.
Hmm.
And I worked with rape survivors and women in domestic violence. And I thought to myself, I should be a lawyer. I could help them from the courtroom much better than I could as a therapist.
Hmm.
And, I really thought like women's rights were my area of expertise. And I was just angry. And I thought, I'd applied to law school. Like I really thought that was my journey. And today I see that as much more relational, I think. I don't feel as polarized about it. I think people come to those places from a relational perspective. So I think it's really important to, if you're going to refer, if you know someone that is experiencing domestic violence, to refer to someone who understands how people get there and what the legal ramifications are, and someone
Hmm.
that will do something right away to intervene, especially when there's kids. So I'm not going to answer that just for legal reasons,
Of
and
course.
because it's just such a wide ranging question. Now, I also want to tack on, thanks Brandon for asking the question.
Hmm. Thank you.
I also want to answer a different question that sometimes comes up, and then I want to answer the narcissism question. When people say they get a referral for a couple, and they say, I'm not going to see you until you end the affair. Well, first of all, I think it's really arrogant of us as the therapist to think, we can say, I've known you for 5 minutes, but I'm going to tell you to end the affair. And they're going to say, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm going to end the affair. Your wife or husband or partner or whatever has been asking you to end the affair. And you're like, no, I'm not going to do that. But the therapist that you've never met is going to ask you and you're going to do it. Well, they're not going to. What's going to happen is they'll lie about it now to their partner and to the therapist. So now I'm part of the whole dishonesty team, or they will end the affair in a way without integrity, like without taking into consideration that maybe that other person is like a real person. I mean, I don't know, maybe they've just been going online and having a tech affair, but there's more information that we need to know about what they've been doing to use that affair as an exit. And I think it's more important to be able to say to the couple or the throuple or the individual, can you close your exits? Can you close the places that you've been draining your energy away from your relationship for a finite period of time in order to work on this issue? And then, we'll come back and revisit where we are. Because For some people, it might mean I'm just not going to sleep with my outside partner, or I'm not going to text them all day long, or I'm going to let them know I'm taking a break, or I'm going to stop masturbating to my online porn group, or I'm going to, everyone knows what their exits are. You know in this call that your exit is playing words with friends or whatever people do now. Mine it's TV and reading trashy mystery novels and watching, White Lotus obsessively. Like, we all have our ways of exiting from our current conflicts or our current relationships or our feelings. And so I ask people to identify that on their own. Amy, I know you have your hand up. I don't want to keep talking.
Didn't want to jump ahead of the other question in chat though, so if you want to.
Well, I'm going to talk about narcissistic abuse, but what's your question? Is it somewhat related, or?
Well, my question is just about the idea of betrayal on the whole. So I'm sitting here and I'm trying to compose a question to you, and I'm thinking about my caseload, and it's so complex. So typically I work with women at the tail end of the betrayal kind of cycle where the marriage has ended and now they're sitting in a sense of betrayal. And I find it to be one of the most tenacious types of trauma, because it's like the affair proves something to them about who they are as women.
Yeah.
And I'm saying women because that's the majority of my practice, but this can apply to anybody, of course. And then I'm also working alongside women identifying folks who are in the middle of an affair, or the affair has ended and now they're in grief while still being in their monogamous kind of. So again, like I'm looking at the complexity of betrayal, going like, where can I educate myself as a practitioner to be able to attend to the spectrum, the continuum of betrayal, where I'm meeting it at all kinds of different ends. So I guess I'm just kind of sitting here with a big question and not knowing the answer.
Well, you're in the right place, and you should definitely come to the longer training where we have more than 3 minutes to talk about those things, because I think your questions are really guided by, the real work on the ground, just like the narcissistic abuse. Like, I don't feel like I'd be doing it justice to answer those questions in 30 seconds or less. I think the narcissistic sort of personality disorder relationships are tough. And I would like to talk in the training about the countertransference that comes up for us and how to use your own feelings in the room to diagnose some of these issues. Because I don't think we talk about therapists as a tool enough. And then the other thing I'm going to talk about, thank you, Amy, for bringing this up, the idea of betrayal. I can tell you from my own experiences of trauma, you're not trying to heal from the betrayal of the other person. You're trying to heal from the betrayal of your own intuition. Why didn't I know? I did know, but I didn't listen. How do I heal and move on with the rest of my life, knowing that I should be able to trust myself? And so trust is an inside job. It's not really about the other person. And that's when people get stuck forever. And I'll talk about that, as well as this idea of grief and the continuum. So thank you for bringing up those questions. Those are important, and we're going to talk about those in the training.
Great, thanks.
We have to close off, and I will say, in terms of the training that's coming up at the end of the month, how we work, we have these live sessions. They're like this. They'll be Zoomed, they'll be recorded, they'll be interactive. And if you can't make any of it or all of it, you'll get copies of the video anyway. So that's how that works. So Tammy, really pleasure to see you again, and thank you for being here this hour. And you'll be back with us again at the end of the month. So I really appreciate it, and thanks for all you're doing to move this field ahead in ways that needs to get moved ahead. We have a traditional closing, and it's a little crazy, but we open up your all your microphones. You can say thank you, and it's a cacophony of sound and gratitude. Thank you, Tammy.